Hey everyone, welcome to the Village Films podcast. I'm Caleb, and this is my co-star, co-host,
David.
whatever you want to call him, David. So we just got done doing a feature-length documentary. So today we're going to talk about 3 things that you should know before you start making your documentary. Intro music. This is just my opinion. I'm a filmmaker.
Are you guys videographers?
Who cares?
So the first thing that we're going to talk about is determining the scale of your project. So like what does that mean? Explain that.
Well,
Explain that like I'm 5. Not really.
I don't know how to do that. Let's see. Determining the scale.
Your mom and dad give you $10 to make a lemonade stand.
I think. Well, so to back up a little bit, I think a lot of indie filmmakers, they start with a really cool idea and they want to create that into either a short film or a long form film. But for us, it helped to determine the scale of our project before we actually dialed in a concept, because in our case, we were presented with an idea of doing a short documentary on some of the gang violence that was happening
Like a
in our
PSA
community.
almost.
Something that could be shown in schools. And so we took a small idea and we scaled it up dramatically. And once we
injected it,
it was
with
like
scale
steroids.
juice.
Yeah, scale juice. And so from there, that helped us determine our budget,
everything. Well, so because like different ideas have different functions, and so one idea you may not be able to scale it up, for a big feature length documentary. It may only be a 10-minute mini doc, or one script idea may only be enough for a short film. And if you did want to develop it for something more, it's going to take development and growth. And so I think understanding, you can have a really cool idea, but just make sure you understand like what's the ceiling for this. If I were to like actually really dream big, not think about how much money do I have right now for this, think about if I could have any resources available to me, how big could this go? And I mean, for us too, like there were limitations. If we were going to do it again, you probably could do a 5 or 6 part series, but there's a budget limitation there. And so I think that helped us determine that.
Yeah.
So like, I think some examples for different scales just within the documentary space are, there's obviously a feature length doc, which is, minimum 80-90 minutes. It's just a standalone film. There's docu-series, which I think is more complex and kind of goes beyond that because there's a lot more involved in the post-production side. And then I think there's other options. There are those short docs out there. They're like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And those are great too. You can explore a lot of topics with that, but that's going to go in a different place. And that won't live on somewhere like buying it on iTunes or anything. I think it's just, those are the kind of the different categories. And so,
but essentially determining the scale of your project will help you figure out how big your concept needs to be and how big your budget needs to be, which kind of leads us into the number 2 thing.
Yeah. So the next thing is just coming up with an idea or a concept that fits within that scale that you just decided, I feel like I can accomplish this on a large scale. And you can kind of have the skeleton of an idea. That's what we had. We had kind of a small idea and we were able to develop it into something larger. So maybe just talk about like that process and coming up with the idea and the concept.
So once we determined the scale, we knew, okay, we want it to be a feature-length documentary, so it needs to be in that 80 to 90-minute mark, and we knew we wanted it to be somewhere in the 6-figure budget range because the scope of work that required to hit that 90-minute mark required a 6-figure budget from us.
You need 80 to 90 minutes worth of content, so you're going to need 10, 20, 30 production days.
Yeah.
And when you start budgeting that out, the numbers
Go
up.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Once we had the budget and the scope of work down, we had to figure out how are we going to come up with the money. Like, the idea also has to be good enough. So first of all, the idea has to be good enough for someone to watch for 90 minutes. You got to retain 90 minutes of their attention. So it's got to be entertaining. The second thing is, for us, we don't come from money. We don't just have, hundreds of thousands of dollars lying around in our bank account to just dispose into this documentary. So we wanted to fundraise the project. And so we thought, instead of doing a crowdfunding approach, which I think most filmmakers do, or either a financing, where you're paying it back at the end, we decided to do more of a cause-based fundraising approach.
Yeah, we tried to do a crowdfunding campaign, and we raised $99, which we're grateful for.
Yeah, one donation.
That's a really good thing to think about when you're trying to get your documentary off the ground is, how can I find an idea or a concept that either I can find someone that believes in, the cause that it's attached to, or I can find a way that the outcome of this information I want to put out will help a community or a person or a people group. And like finding that social kind of aspect to it, instead of just saying, hey, I want to do a documentary about trees. If that's your space, find an environmental cause attached to trees. Maybe it's deforestation or something like that. But you have to find a problem that needs a solution, and you have to find someone that believes in that solution enough to provide you funding. And so that's how we were able to do it, is people saw gang violence in the community we're in, and they wanted to see the issues solved. And it's not just the issue of gang violence, it's the underlying causes. And that's how we were able to sell it, is because there's a lot more than just what you see. And that was kind of the whole thing of our film. And that's how we were able to get it made. And so I know the funding issue with films is like a huge topic, and we're going to talk more about that in other videos, but that's kind of like the cliff notes is, if you can, find something that people believe in and can get behind you, you can do the fundraising route. And that also works too for the crowdfunding approach too, if you can get enough of an audience, but we just didn't have as much success with that.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to talk about is you have to believe you can do it. So that was your note, so I'm going to let you jump in on that.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
Well, what I mean by that is there are going to be plenty of times in the process of you trying to make your documentary, before you even start production, where you're going to get a lot of no's, a lot of closed doors. You're going to reach out to people for trying to raise money, and they're going to tell you no. They're going to tell you it's, it can't be done, or, whatever the reason is. You're going to get a lot of closed doors. And so it takes persistence and, honestly, just blind hope that you're going to do this project that you've set out to do. And it may take a lot longer than you think. Like, we're 2 years into this and we're still working on it, basically. So by the time this comes out, our film will be out and ready to watch on digital platforms. But that was a 2-year process from start to finish. And, it takes...
You have to just stay focused on like your idea, and if you believe in it and you feel like it's important, just keep pressing through. And like you said, we had people telling us, how is this film gonna solve gang violence? And we were like, well, it's not gonna solve gang violence. We want to highlight this issue. We want to raise awareness for what's really going on. And so obviously just making a film isn't going to solve a thing. It's what happens after that. It's how people respond to it. It's what they take away from it. That's where things change. And so if you feel like what you're wanting to say in your film is important, just keep focusing, and you'll find the right people that will, partner with you. And also, like, that's a great thing I just thought of is, like, find some people that you can work on it with you that believe in it too, because it can be hard. We had each other to kind of like stay focused on it. It can be hard to keep pressing on by yourself if everyone's telling you don't make this, or this film isn't worth making. Find some people that will be in your corner that will actually champion you. And so this last thing says, if one door closes, look for another one. Love that. You don't know how many doors we opened.
Or we knocked on.
We knocked on a lot of doors. Lots of them didn't open, but we kept going. So
eventually one opens, and you just keep doing the work. Just keep going, and eventually it will become a reality. But for a year, it was a solid year before our film became a reality. And that was the hardest part for me, was, making it, I think.
That's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something, let us know in the comments what you're working on. Like this video, share it, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video.